Okay, so the ingredients for the sweet potato pie are 2 medium-sized sweet potatoes. The one is a little bit larger, but I would rather have too much than not enough. So I usually make one a little bit larger than I think I need, and then one the size that I believe is the size that the recipe calls for. It's going to be 3 tablespoons of butter. Unless the recipe specifically calls for salted or unsalted, I always use unsalted in my baking. It is going to be melted, but I haven't done that yet. Then 3/4 cup sugar, 2 eggs, and a teaspoon of lemon peel only. I do not have the official, I believe it's called a rasp, that, to get peel from oranges and lemons, but I use this fine handled grater and it works just fine. Okay, so I use that and I'll measure out a teaspoon. When you do that though, you just want to be sure that you do not go too long in one spot. You don't want to get any of that white pithy, I believe it's called like the pith. You just want to get the yellow top of the peel for the fresh peel. And then you need a 5-ounce can of evaporated milk. I'm using the Carnation brand, but you can use whatever brand that you would like. 5 ounce, and you're going to want to shake that really good before using it. And then it calls for, my grandma's recipe calls for a dash of nutmeg. Now I would consider a dash to be about 1/4 teaspoon. If you really like nutmeg, you could add a little bit more. If you don't like it, you could add a little less. You could use ground. I'm going to use, I have the fresh, I'm going to grind it myself using one of these, which I've done before and it turns out just perfect. Okay. Okay, so your first step would be to get a cookie sheet and line it with foil. That's where you're going to place the pie to bake it on. Even if it's not, this isn't like a real liquidy pie, but it doesn't matter. I always like to place any pie I bake in the oven on a cookie sheet with foil, just in case something spills or overflows a little bit while baking. I've got cleanup covered and it's not burning off in the bottom of the oven and setting off the fire alarm and just giving me way more problem than is necessary. So I always do this step first. And then you want to preheat your oven to 350. And then you want to chop or peel and chop your sweet potatoes into just small, little bit smaller than bite-sized cubes. You're going to place these in a pot of fresh cold water and boil them. Let them come to a boil. Boil them until they are quite soft, because then you have to take them out, drain them, and mash them. And I'll show you how I do that once they're done. Okay, sorry about the steam, but I just drained them, put them back in the pan. Now, see how you can easily mash this just with the fork? That's how soft you want it. You want them pretty soft, okay? Now, you can mash these several different ways. You can use a blender if you didn't have any other way. You could use a food processor. You could use a hand mixer or even a stand mixer. I prefer to get the best texture one of these. It's just the hand masher. Sorry, I'm holding the camera with the other hand and it's hard to show you guys this, but this is just on a handle and it's one of these. You can get these pretty much anywhere, I think. And this is what I really like when I make homemade mashed potatoes. And for this recipe, also, anytime you need to mash something, this is what I prefer to use. But like I said, you can use one of the other methods too. You just want to be careful that you don't want to puree it. You want it the consistency of mashed potatoes. So once I mash these, I'll give you a look at that. Okay, so I have mashed the sweet potato. Now, as you can see, let's use a fork here. It's the consistency of like thick mashed potatoes because you don't mix anything else with them yet. But it's, you know, it doesn't have, it might have a tiny bit, you know, chunky bit in there somewhere. But for the most part, you want to get them as smooth as you can. Okay? And I do have, it calls for 1 1 1/3 cups mashed. Okay, 2 medium, and it should come to about 1 1/3. I do have a little bit more than 1 1/3. I'm not going to worry about that little bit though. I am going for it. So then your next step after you have your potatoes ready is in a big bowl. You want to whisk together or beat together. I whisked because you're going to need to whisk your potatoes in, and I didn't want to take out my hand mixer just for the eggs and sugar. So you put your 2 eggs, your 3/4 cup sugar in a big bowl, whisk them together real good. See how that's nice and incorporated? Okay, now to that mixture, you are going to put in your melted butter, which I have done already, 3 tablespoons. Melt that in I just use a microwave safe cup and do that in the microwave for about 25 seconds. Then you want to add your lemon peel, which I have done right here. That's a good healthy teaspoon because I like the lemon peel in there, so I'm using a good healthy teaspoon. Then you are going to put in your nutmeg, and as I said, you can use the ground nutmeg. I decided to grind my own. I have the fresh and the ground. I use the fresh and ground it with the same grater, this one, as I did the lemon peel. If you have a rasp, that would work well too, but I don't have the official tool for it, but that works fine. Now this is not, the recipe calls for a dash. This is way more than a dash. I would consider a dash between 1/8 and 1/4 teaspoon. This is definitely more than 1/4 teaspoon, and I'm going to use the 1/4 teaspoon because I have more of the sweet potato than the 1 1/3 cup. I have closer to 1 3/4 cups actually. So I'm going to use a level 1/4 teaspoon, and then maybe just a pinch because I love nutmeg. And you're going to stir that together. Just give it a couple whisks around. Okay, the next thing you want to do is add your evaporated milk. Now, you don't want to open this ahead of time because you want to give it a good shake before you open it and pour it in. So you want to give it a couple really good shakes and then open it. And I always make sure to rinse off the top of any can that I use. Okay, dump that in there. Give that a little stir to incorporate. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You just want to kind of incorporate it. And then you're going to dump in your sweet potato. And whisk that in. Now you want to kind of be careful. You might want to just kind of like pat it down a little bit, get it going. You don't want to start whisking vigorously at first, or your milk mixture is just going to go flying off the side of the bowl. Okay, and then as it gets more incorporated, you want to whisk a little bit more vigorously to make sure that everything gets combined, well combined. Okay. And then once everything is well combined, you want to go ahead and for this pie, moving the camera around. For this pie, you want just a single pie crust. Now, you could go ahead and make your pie crust if you'd like. I love homemade pie crust, but a lot of times I don't have the time, or it's just not something I want to put the effort in at that moment, because it is a little bit time consuming. So my favorite brand is the Marie Callender's. You can use whatever frozen pie you want. It only calls for, the one crust, and you do not need to pre-bake it. So take that out at the last, you don't want it really defrosted either. You still want it pretty much cold from the freezer. And then just pour in your sweet potato mixture. Get it all in there. I think I'm going to go ahead and get my spatula so I can get the rest of it. Okay, now this is going to go into your preheated 350 degree oven, and you are going to bake it about 30 minutes, and then you're going to check it and make sure that the edges of your pie crust are not too brown. If they're starting to get browner than you'd like, then you can go ahead and cover the edges with foil. And in total, you want, after the first 30 minutes, you want to cook it, it's going to be a total of 50 to 60 minutes, or until a butter knife comes out clean when you put it in the middle of the pie. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, put this in the oven, and I'll show you the finished product when it's done baking. Okay, so I just checked my pie. It's baked about 25 minutes already, and the crust, the edges of the crust are a nice golden brown, and I really don't want them to get any darker. And the pie is going to take at least another 25 minutes, maybe 20 to 30 minutes to bake. So what I did was I took a long piece of foil, I cut 2 strips from the long piece, and I'm going to take these 2 strips and I'm just going to drape it around the edges of the pie. So it's a little too hard for me to go ahead and actually show you the process, so I will cover the edges with these 2 strips, and then I'll give you a peek at what it looks like. Okay, so there you go. I just, as you can see, I just draped it over the edges of the crust, and I made sure that I did not, poke my fingers into the filling. And I'm just going to let that finish baking the way it is, so that the edges of the crust just stay that nice golden brown and don't burn. Okay, so the pie is done. It is cooled enough. I have cut it. Look at that deliciousness. Okay, and then I have, as you can see, there was a slice missing. I have plated it. Oh, look at that. Now, it looks like I have way more Ready Whip on there than I do, but it can't be without the Ready Whip. So let's see. Take a bit of that. Oh my God, guys, this, you have to make this. This is so good. So delicious. This is a great recipe, thanks to my grandma. I don't know where she got it, but it is delicious. I am going to enjoy the rest of this. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and stay tuned for my next one. Have a great day. Bye-bye.